Hi, welcome to the Astrology Gene Hart radio show for our second great episode. Tonight, I'm Gene Hart,
And I'm Terry Canady.
and we are here to entertain and serve you. So,
We are, and we have a guest, but we aren't going to tell you who it is quite yet.
secret.
It's just Gene and me to start with.
And we have a lot of fun things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about astrology, of course, because this is the main theme of our show is following the stars and how they influence everything. We're going to go back to the subject of Atlantis tonight and mention some of those things we didn't talk about, like unicorns.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then we're going to get a little bit into karma and reincarnation. And then also we're going to do some corrections on the hiccups of our first show that many of you may have heard.
Like what?
Like, I kind of was joking around and I said we'd have French tailors on.
and CIA and
The
FBI.
CIA. Well, I don't think we're going to make the CIA or
We're not going into the CIA and the FBI right
or
now.
any politics.
No,
we might mention a little politics here and there, but
Well, we want to have fun with you with astrology because astrology is a real key, and you know a lot about astrology.
yes, that's my favorite subject.
Yeah.
And y'all need to know how to chart your own course. And that's what the show will show you how to do. Well, I don't know if it'll show you. It'll tell you.
We'll give people enough information so that they can then get back in touch with you, and you've got courses that they can take. Plus,
Absolutely.
you can do the astrology.
Knowing your time, date, and place of birth and charting your course in life is probably the most important thing you can possibly do to save your own life. Life on Earth is survival, and survival skills sometimes require a roadmap or a compass, and that's simply all that astrology is a roadmap to tell you which way you should go, when you should stop, and when you should slow down.
Now, what I think is most amazing is that the time, date, and place of where you are born just absolutely sets your sail.
I know.
I mean,
There's no two snowflakes that are alike.
That's such a mystery.
So there's not two people that are alike, even twins. The closest I've seen is 1 minute apart. Even if they were a second apart, their chart would be different because the sky never stops moving.
Oh, that's
so there's
true.
different
Yeah.
alignments at different times. It's astounding. I think my most favorite thing to do in life is to unveil a new time, date, and place of birth to see what I got, because the whole story is there in the chart.
Oh, you mean like if you got a new client, then all of a sudden it's a whole brand new thing.
Yeah. And also you can chart the course of anything that has a time, date, or place of birth, such as a bill that passes in the White House. You can chart and see the course of where it's going to go.
And I write businesses when they start, marriages when they start.
And buildings, when you build them, when you take over them. It's just amazing what you can do with astrology.
Since I started learning
Businesses.
about astrology, I write poetry and I write music and one thing and another. I always keep track of the exact time and the date of when I wrote a line to poetry.
Oh my gosh.
So that later on I could go back and look at it if I wanted to.
Right. And of course, today we're doing a show with the moon in Virgo, and it's a full moon in Virgo, so we're going to be a little amplified in our energy, just like the tide is higher under a full moon. One of the most important things you want to watch in astrology is the moon. Where's the moon? And the reason why is because the moon is the only luminary that travels around the Earth. All the rest of the planets, including the Earth, travel around the sun.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So the moon has some sort of special influence upon us, and I think it does influence our emotional body for the most part, which is where all our karma abides, in the emotions, the desire body.
It does.
Yeah, so when you have a feeling and it's, emotional, you can bet you're tapping into something that you have a record of that needs to be resolved, else you would not be having that feeling. So it's pretty amazing. To watch the moon is the most important thing. If everybody knew how to chart their moon from morning to night, they would save themselves so much trouble, and it's so simple. It's
What now? When you say morning to night, that's on a daily basis. Then.
yeah, on a daily basis, because you get up, you're kind of grumpy. 2 hours later, you're in a good mood. It's not that you're bipolar. It's
just that there's something wrong with
moved
it.
on to another. The moon has moved on to another location, and it's coming. It's sending its energy down the pipeline
Okay.
from another angle. of you, and you're a walking, talking antenna. So you're always conducting energy through what's called your four lower bodies: your etheric body, which is where all your inspiration comes from; your
Okay.
mental body, everything you're thinking about; your emotional body, everything you feel; and your physical body, that little hard thing that you're walking around in.
That
What
shell of a thing.
a shell of a thing.
Yeah.
Some of them are kind of cute shells. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
tonight Terry Canady is a great country singer. If you don't know anything about him, he's been singing the bar scene for many, many, many
Yeah.
years.
Well, I started in '61 in Kansas City, and
Yeah,
you're from the Kansas City area,
I
so
am.
we talk
We talk the same
we
language.
talk the same language. We speak Missouri.
We got some little redneck on sides of our.
I was just a kid when I started out. When you think about it, I was 20 years old when I started playing the nightclubs in Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City.
Imagine when you were 20 years old. I mean, that's really young. You're just out of high school.
I thought I was still 20.
Yeah, and I'm out there starting my. Well, I was starting my dharma, which is what you're kind of supposed to do in life, right?
Right.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the astrology shows your dharma, your mission. You know, if everybody before they chose the classes they were going to take in college got their chart done, they could see where they should direct their energy before they waste their time taking so many classes that
Oh
have
my
nothing to
gosh.
do with what they're going to do.
So we all go to either the boys' advisor or the girls' advisor before we leave high school,
Right.
and we meet with them and try and figure out what we're supposed to study in college. They ought to be reading our charts.
Yeah. The sad thing is that what happens is you live your life, you do the wrong career, the wrong mission, and you're miserable in your job all your life, and you can't figure it out. Why do I feel so miserable? Why do I not like what I'm doing?
Yeah.
That's because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, your heart just glows. It's so warm. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And then you leave embodiment and you go back and you stand before, remember those 7 people we were talking about?
Well, we call them
Lords of
the
Karma.
Lords of Karma. Yeah.
The spiritual hierarchy of this planet or this universe or this solar system or this God, however
Yeah.
you want to call
And people see
that.
them when they leave
Yeah,
and
before
when they go.
and you get to leave. Did you ever see that movie with Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks?
Oh, that's one of my
Defending Your Life.
It's one of my
Oh
favorite
gosh,
movies.
That is,
He just got a brand new BMW and boom, he hits a bus.
yeah, goes.
He's on the other side. It looks like he's at down there in a Disneyland or something in one of those tram cars.
And he falls in love in heaven.
I know.
What a great place to fall in love. But you got to see the movie Defending Your Life. I think it was made in the 90s or 80s, or it's pretty old, but it is so classic.
Well, there's a lot to it that's very real.
Yeah, it's
Actually,
true.
because he's sitting in this chair, and all of a sudden there's these 3 overseers, like judges,
Yeah.
and they talk about certain things, and then one of them says, "Well, let's take a look at that event then." And all of a sudden his chair goes, ka-chung,
Yeah.
and he turns around 180 degrees, and there's a screen, and he watches like something that happened on the playground,
That's amazing.
And then his chair, and then he's back facing them, and then they talk about it.
Yeah, that first fight that he got into when he was a little boy.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out whether he was chicken or whether he was truly courageous.
Well, anyway, so you were going somewhere with that defending your life thing.
Please go watch it, Defending Your Life. It'll make you laugh, but it's also a true story. And truly, all of us have to stand before that karmic board and review our lives when we leave this place. And we were talking about our careers and doing the wrong kind of work. The thing is that you get to the other side and you go, oh, shoot, that's what I was supposed to do. Why didn't I do it?
Yeah.
But if you look at your astrology, you can see what you designed. Of course you have free will choice, but the funny thing about astrology and you is that when you're hearing or you're figuring out what your chart means, you have a gut feeling, you have a reaction to it that says, yeah, that's absolutely right. Or no, that's not right. So it's like you can clearly define where you should be and what you should be doing.
You had somebody on the phone from our last show, and she was it was like she was amazed at how accurate you were with her reading.
Yeah. And you out there listening people, you're more than welcome to call in with your time, date, and place of birth, and we will do your chart on the air. The other things we're going to talk about tonight is, well, first of all, you should probably know a little bit about me if you don't, since I'm the host of this show, and I've been practicing astrology for some 30 years, and please don't put an age on that. That doesn't mean I'm old.
Started when you were 5.
I started Started. Actually, I was 6.
So 30 years.
36.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little older than that. But
How did you start?
this is an amazing story. My mom used to calculate my dad's business all the time just for fun. She was an Aquarian. She was brilliant. She was a natural-born psychologist. She was good with numbers. She was good with crossword puzzles too.
Mm-hmm.
But so she had these astrology table book type things laying around, and I picked them up and saw them. Never really paid much attention to them. But when I turned, I'm not going to tell you what age. I went and got my astrology done by a woman who had a PhD in psychology, and she said, "My God, you should be doing astrology. That is what you should be doing." And it probably took me 3 weeks to actually master the field.
No kidding.
It was like I knew how to do it before I did it.
Do you think you had done it in a previous life?
I know I have.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is probably 6 months after having this happen to me, I went into a bookstore and this book fell off the shelf. I'm not kidding. And it opened up to a picture of me in a past life. I'm not going to tell you who that is, but we'll get into it maybe in some other show.
Okay.
But it was like astrology all over the place. And I did that person's chart and my chart today. And it's amazing. You know, where you leave off in one life is where you're going to start in your next life.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exactly the story of that person and me. So, that being said,
So then you fairly well mastered it early on in life, and then you just decided to just kind of keep studying it. And how long have you done it as a career then?
some 30 years,
30 years, okay.
33 or something. None, you know, the interesting thing about, running into someone you've been before is that it's a wake-up call. You know, I don't think anybody should blow open the doors to find out what their past lives were. But I do think that you do have natural inclinations to find who you are.
Yeah.
So when you're watching, shows from the past and you see familiar time periods that you're really attracted to, like if you're attracted to the Persian princesses or the Civil War or the Southern Belles or the
Knights of the Round Table.
Knights of the Round Table, Templars,
Yeah.
You might consider how strong that attraction is. And all the answers are written on your inward parts, your gut feelings, your hunches. And so in that inner being, you can determine, I believe, you lock into some roles that you've played in your past lives. Although we tend to do the similar things over and over again, and history does repeat itself, still, I think we do it over and over again in different roles.
And we have a tendency to do the things that are comfortable and not the things that are uncomfortable. And does that tell us then that we have to kind of
Go for the uncomfortable.
Go for the uncomfortable
Yeah.
a little bit?
Yeah, in your pain is your gold nugget. That's where your character is. And I want to say, speaking of pain, in your pain, tonight we have a guest, and his name is Dr. John Karp, and he's really good at dealing with pain. So, John Karp, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, Jean and Terry. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Yeah, she didn't say what kind of doctor I am.
No, she didn't.
No.
I thought I'd leave that for you.
So I'm not a psychiatrist.
Okay.
I'm not a podiatrist.
Darn, we needed that.
No, I'm a chiropractor.
Okay.
I've been practicing just around 30 years. I practiced 25 years now in Montana. And before that, I was about 6 years. I practiced in Australia. So I was going to stay in Australia.
That's that place where they stand on their head, isn't it?
Everyone's upside down there.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
right.
I was going to stay there longer, but I kept getting punched out by kangaroos. They seem like they're real friendly, and you approach them and they'll just smack you right in the kisser.
And they're pretty good at boxing.
Yeah, that's
aren't they?
right. That's right. Yeah. So,
Are you? I mean, is that for real?
well, not exactly. I'm exaggerating a bit. So, anyway, so.
Wasn't there a movie,
So
Kangaroo
how
Jack?
did you end up in Australia? Because you studied chiropractic in Davenport, didn't you?
Davenport, Iowa. That's right. Well, How long did this show go for?
Oh, well, we're just about to close her out. No, just kidding.
That's a long story.
It's a long story.
Yes, but through some contacts I'd made back when I was in school,
Yeah.
I found out about a particular clinic near Sydney I wanted to work at. And so I got to apply there, and initially I couldn't get my visa, but through some strange happenstance, I did get a visa there, and so I was able to go there and work in this clinic. Plus, I was single and unattached, and I could travel, you know. And I
What'd you
wanted
do
to-
in that clinic?
So I wanted to travel the world, and I ended up there in Sydney. So,
What'd you do there in Sydney in the clinic?
well, we
You look for a mate. No.
For a mate. They use that word down there, mate. Isn't everybody a
That's right.
mate?
That's right, they do.
Hey,
yeah,
mate.
in Australia, a mate isn't necessarily, you know, the opposite sex.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be a friend. But in Australia, I practiced chiropractic and did nutritional work in our clinic, and it was a place where people can come and stay and go through detoxification programs and nutritional programs.
Okay.
And
Wow.
we had 100 beds there. It was called Hopewood Health Center. And it was started by a woman who was a pioneer back in health, alternative health, back in the 40s. Her name was Madge Coburn, and she was an amazing woman in Australia. She was actually knighted by the Queen for her service and work in the country there.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah, so that was one of her projects, was this health center. Because what she did, Madge Coburn, was she got together a lot of orphans from World War II who had lost their parents in the war, and they didn't have any place for them to be cared for at that time around Sydney. And so she bought this building. It was some sort of healthcare center.
Uh-huh.
And she changed this over to a housing for these orphans.
Okay.
And then she was also into natural health back in the 40s and 50s, which is very rare. So,
Oh, it was extremely rare.
sure.
Yeah.
So she had them on specific nutritional programs. And these were kids, you know, anywhere from a few years up to the teens. And she got working with some doctors, and they tracked these children for several years, many years, and they compared their dental and health records to kids of the same age who had a normal diet versus, you know, health natural diet, and they were way ahead. Yeah, so that's how Hopewood started, and then it eventually became an alternative health center.
Well, what's your positioning in all of that?
At Hopewood, you mean? Mm-hmm. So I was the director there of the center, and we did a lot of detoxifying work and fasting there. And people actually came in; they'd stay. Average stay was about a week.
Fasting, I love that. I've played around with it a little bit over the years, and it's done amazing things to me, as far as energizing me. You know.
Sure. Well, a lot of people hear the word fasting, and they kind of look like, you know, they get a deer in the headlights look.
Well, you know, one thing that happens when you fast is that all of a sudden something that you never eat comes into your brain: bacon, steak, Twinkies.
Sure.
You know, anything you can. I mean, it's just total torture for the first few hours, and then
Well,
after
there-
that, you get over it.
I might tell a patient they have to, you know, it'd be a good idea to fast for this particular condition. They'll look at me and say, like, you mean the type of fasting where I don't eat? I say, yeah, that's
That's it. But there is a kind of fasting where you do eat, like a rice, cooked rice in water, for instance, can be a 3-day fast, right?
That's right. Technically, it's not a fast. It's what's called a mono diet.
Okay.
But it has a effect. It does have an effect of cleansing your body when you do that to a certain extent.
Okay.
But true fasting is not having any solid food. You know, just liquids.
What kind of liquids?
Well, the kind you can drink.
But come on, coffee. Let's fast on coffee for 24 hours.
Yeah. Hey, not a bad idea.
No, come on.
Green drink.
You'd want to have, you want to have fresh juices, or you can have herbal teas, or just water, you know, with lemon juice in it.
What's a good tea?
So, Well, you want to have any teas that don't have caffeine. You don't have caffeine during a fast. But, mint teas are good for digestion, and there's a whole variety of herbal teas. But
Yeah.
the fasting is a way to, detoxify your body of toxins that accumulate over time from foods we eat and from toxins we breathe in, we get exposed to. And when your body gets a chance and it doesn't have any food coming in, it'll start automatically breaking down those things and start eliminating them
Oh, I see.
through different channels in your body.
And
It's a built-in mechanism. It's actually a way for the body to survive when it doesn't have any food. So the average person can go for a month without any food before they really start to, get into a nutritional deficit where they're actually starving.
Boy, there's some misconceptions about fasting then, because you hear about starvation.
Well, sure, yeah. There's, a lot of people think, when you're fasting, you're starving.
right.
But starvation doesn't start until you run out of reserves in your body.
Okay.
Now, your liver has reserves of both the fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins for up to about a month. And
So what do you suggest is a fair amount of time to spend fasting?
well, that varies with people, but
Well, like
if you
just
haven't
a-
done any fasting before, you just want to start with a 24-hour fast.
Okay.
How often?
So,
Carrot juice, maybe?
in 24 hours, you can have, whatever juice you like.
Okay.
It's not that critical. Or you
How
can have
often,
just
though?
water. How often? Well, that's up to the person. You wouldn't want to do it, more than once a week. But some people fast once a week, just
Once
as
a
a
week.
regular
Yeah.
practice. And what you can do is you have your dinner. Well, if you're going to do it on Saturday, you have a dinner. Then you just skip your breakfast and lunch the
For
next day
Sunday.
on Saturday, and then you have your dinner on Saturday. That's a 24-hour fast.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's pretty easy. Most people can do that.
I
And
love carrot juice. I love it. Fresh
Oh, yeah.
carrot juice. There's nothing like it.
and how you're feeling after a 24-hour fast, particularly if you do it just on water, gives you a good idea of the health of, where you're at with your body and how toxic you are. Now, if you're flat on your back and you're you're gagging and coughing and you got a headache and your liver hurts and your joints are achy, that's a sign that your body wants to fast and needs to fast.
Yeah,
Other
that old
people-
saying, no pain, no gain.
Other people can
So
do
that's
that.
when people, when they're sick or when they're ill, is when they should fast. Then, right? And
that
there is
they can.
there is a general tendency to not want to eat while you're not feeling well too.
That's right. When you lose your appetite, that's
Yeah.
your body telling you, it wants to detoxify.
Rest.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
And the bottom line is if you want to lose weight, the best way to lose weight is just don't eat.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Seriously.
Well, he says you can go for a month.
on a
Drink
fast, say if you do a 3 or 5 day fast, your average over that time for weight loss is going to be 10 pounds, or I'm sorry, a pound a day.
Okay.
So however many days you fast, that's how many pounds you lose. Except if you have a lot of water weight, if you do a 3 day fast, some people will lose, 8 to 10 pounds in 3 days, but most of that's just water coming off the body.
It's amazing. We're talking health, and one of the sign that rules health is Virgo, the full moon in Virgo.
Oh,
So here
okay.
we have a health practitioner on our show.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing about fasting is it's a spiritual practice too, and when you do it, you don't want to be, watching a lot of heavy stuff on TV or being in situations that are really demanding emotionally. You want to kind of get away from it all, and so to speak.
Retreat.
Retreat, rest, and let your body have a
Oh,
sort of a vacation from stimuli, all sorts of sensory stimuli.
okay.
So, and that's part of the healing process
Oh, that's
too.
interesting.
Yeah, so in our clinic in Australia, people would come there. We had people, the longest fast it was there was 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Someone fasted for 6 weeks, and the shortest was 6 hours.
Really?
They didn't make it, past the first meal.
That happens to me sometimes. I'll start to fast. I fast every once in a while, but I'll start to fast, and if I'm really not in it, 3 hours later, you'll
You'll
see
come
me in
back
the
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so in a nutshell, you were in Australia for 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you came back to the States. And how long have you been here in Montana now?
25 years.
25 years.
Well, it's about 24.
And your style of chiropractic practice is what? How does it differ from someone else, basically?
Well, when we get into chiropractic techniques and styles, there's I don't know how many hundreds of them.
Okay.
Every chiropractor is different. Chiropractic is different than, say, a medical practitioner, say a surgeon. Is going to remove a gallbladder.
Right.
And there's pretty much only one way to do that. But the chiropractic, when you work on the spine and the soft tissue and the vertebrae and other systems in the body, there's a lot of ways to do it. So it all appeals to the type of work that the particular chiropractor does. So
Okay.
my work is both traditional chiropractic, and then I do a lot of reflex work, kinesiology, muscle work, and I'm more eclectic, you can say, in terms of how I work on the body.
Why
But
is
that
there
varies.
why is there such a division between the medical and the chiropractic world?
Well, they're just two totally different approaches to dealing with.
But why is
the
there
body.
it seems like there's a friction or something, medical doctors and chiropractors?
Well, there is. Medical doctors don't understand the chiropractic approach.
They don't study it.
That's right. Yeah. So they do have a built-in bias towards it. And that gets back to how chiropractic was developed. See, it started in 1895 by a chiropractor. His name was, he was a healer, Daniel Palmer. And he was in Davenport, Iowa. And he was like a healer. He was he did massage. He did what's called magnetic healing, laying on hands, body work. Of course, there wasn't any professions back then that licensing for any of
What
that.
year are we talking about?
1895.
Okay.
Okay.
So he had one of his clients come to him, and the guy was deaf. He'd been deaf all his life. And so Daniel Palmer was working on him and doing some work on his neck and some massage, and he felt this bone in his neck seemed like it was shifted to one side. So he got the inspiration came down from his higher self, and he said, "I need to shift this bone." So he just kind of put his palm of his hand on it and held his head, and he pushed on that bone, and it went click, and the guy got up off the table, and he started to hear. He could hear him speaking.
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
this man had never had any hearing all his life. So, of course, this was quite dramatic for
Right.
Daniel Palmer. So he started investigating other of his clients and how the bones were feeling in their neck, whether they were lined up or not. So this man probably had what's called a subluxation from birth that affected the nerves. I won't go into all the technical detail, but there was some relation to the functioning of his hearing
Right.
and how his neck was aligned or not aligned correctly. So Daniel Palmer developed chiropractic out of that over the next couple decades, and he coined the term subluxation, and it's really an interesting term.
That's a $10 word if I ever heard one.
Well, they have in medical, physiotherapy, you have the term dislocation, where a joint gets literally out of socket or out of line. But a subluxation is where a joint is out of line, but it's not dislocated. But the word literally means it's broken down into three words: sub, which means less or under, and then lux, which is Latin for light. And nation comes from the word nation, which means body. Body of people or a group of things,
Right.
or the actual body. So put them together, you got less light in the body flowing. That's what he was trying to convey with the word subluxation.
Oh, it's a perfect word.
So when a vertebrae gets out of line, in the spine, and it stays that way, then there's this what's called a subluxation complex that develops, where you get blockage in nerve flow in that area, and you get the muscles tighten up, and lymphatics get congested there, and the result is whatever area that is, say it's in the middle of your back, like T8, which corresponds to the nerve routing to the liver. What's going to happen is your liver won't be having the full nerve flow to it.
Oh.
And so people who have developed liver disease, it's quite possible they could have a subluxation in the middle of their back.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And you know what's
That's
interesting?
amazing.
1895. One thing I learned a few years ago when I was studying common law and one thing and another was that license is privilege to do that which is illegal and unlawful. So the AMA came into being first part of the 1900s, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So then they were working alongside the chiropractors for a while, but then somehow or another, this whole licensing thing came about. So people were licensed so they could practice, so they could do something which is illegal and unlawful and pay someone for it.
Well, no,
How's that for a sidebar?
That's interesting.
Well,
You know,
plus they were licensed to dispense drugs. You know, the drugs were coming in at that time; they were being developed,
Yeah.
and so that's where they split off from natural medicine. So if you look around, go back to the Civil War, and the natural health movement and natural healing in America was gaining steam, and there was two types of treatment for the soldiers in the Civil War. One was the natural approach, and the other was the drug approach. And they were making, they were crude medications back then, but they were trying them, and different types of sulfur compounds to help heal wounds and this sort of thing. And what happened was the medical side of it gained more momentum and gained more support from the drug companies that were very young, but they were developing that.
I see.
So the natural approach kind of got pushed to the side
Right.
back then. So, but what happened was during the Civil War, the soldiers that were treated naturally with their wounds, a lot of times they didn't do anything for them. They would just clean them. That's all they do, and bandage them. Then you had the medicals and the drug practitioners who were putting all these sulfur compounds and other things in the wounds. Well, the natural approach with the soldiers healed better and healed faster.
Oh, yeah.
But still, because the medical approach had more money behind it, then they became the more dominant profession.
Is the work.
Back then.
You know, the ankle bone's connected to the knee bone. Knee bone's connected to
I
the...
used to sing that song in the club. Well, in bones and bones and dry bones and bones and bones and dry bones.
Ooh, I like it.
Bones and bones and dry bones. Now here's the work of the Lord. And then I'd go through the whole skeleton,
That was the theme song of our school.
What?
No, not really.
Yeah. So, well, that's quite a dissertation, John. This, my gosh, we could call this the astrology and health
This is
show
the moon in Virgo
Sure,
at
sure.
its best.
because
Sure.
this is very important information.
Yeah, it is.
But there's one point I want to get out to all the people that are listening in Radio Land here. If they're not familiar with chiropractic, if you have a condition, chiropractic can be just a great asset to help you relieve that condition if that's the issue.
Right.
And so many people develop medical problems, health problems, and they usually try in the medical approach first, although more and more are turning to natural approaches.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll try all these other things, and nothing will get to the problem. But if they have a subluxation in their spine and they get an adjustment, that can just allow the body to start healing itself. Daniel Palmer had this concept, and he called it universal intelligence. And he said it comes down from above the body. You can't see it, but it flows through the body. And when it's flowing, it allows the body to heal itself, no matter what the condition is.
This guy was right on.
Oh, yeah. If you give the body the right condition itself, because it has this universal intelligence, and from that, he developed the concept of innate intelligence, which is the body's own self-healing properties. But again, if you have a condition that can respond to chiropractic, it will save you a lot of searching around for different cures that aren't helping. So just to give you an example, just recently I had a woman who had several years, she had fibromyalgia, and her joints and skin were getting very painful, very tight, which is common in that condition. And she had gone through all sorts of alternative and medical approaches for several years, and she was just living in pain. And she came to me, and she hadn't had an adjustment of the chiropractic type, and she had a subluxation in her mid back that was affecting digestion and some other things. And the next day, she was pain free for the first time in many years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a testimonial.
That's right. That's just one example of how chiropractic can, if that's the problem in the body, you get the energy freed up, get the nerve energy flowing, the chi, as the Chinese call it, then your body will heal itself.
Okay, so here's my next question. Are you writing a book about these things?
Yeah, I just started. No, I'm not.
Well, you should. I'm just going to light a fire under you because I always try and encourage people to do that.
You do nutritional stuff over the phone, right?
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and give us your phone number and
Yeah, well, if someone has a condition that can be related to possible nutritional status or an issue with toxicity in the body,
Right.
which can relate to digestive problems or immune system problems or skin problems or glandular problems, then they can call in and I can discuss that with them.
How do they reach you?
My number is 406-333-4204.
do you have an email address?
montdr@aol.com.
That's
Say
that one
say
more
it
again.
montdr.
Okay, MONT for Montana, DR, that'll be easy to remember, Montana Doctor,
At AOL.
at AOL.
.com.
.com. And I'm going to do the number again. It's area code 406-333, should be an easy one, and the last four digits?
4204.
4204. Okay.
Yeah, so that
Give 'em
gives you, when you have an AOL address, that kind of gives tells you I'm a little older than the 20-year-olds out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, with age comes wisdom.
That's right. So he's a wise guy.
He is. I didn't
Yeah,
understand
I've
half
been
of what he
told
was
that.
talking about there.
Yeah.
Many times I'm a wise guy. Yeah. By the way, do you know how many chiropractors it takes to change a light bulb?
I have no idea.
It just takes one, but it takes 20 visits.
Pretty good. Pretty
Oh,
good.
So it's funny, but there's some truth in that because the way chiropractic works is when your body has a subluxation or a distortion pattern in the spine that's been there for sometimes many years,
Yeah.
you just can't give one correction and expect the body to heal. Many times, because the muscles and tissues have memory in there, and they want to stay in the old pattern, so it takes a lot of times several treatments to get the body to get back in a normal pattern.
Okay, I'm going to throw this in. Can a chiropractic or can a spinal situation carry over from one life to the next?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, bones hold where you have misused power in past lives.
Oh,
Supposedly.
really?
Yeah.
So you could come in with a distorted spine and begin to work on that through chiropractic, as an example, and get
But
straightened
also
around.
change
so to
your
speak.
attitude a little bit too. Quit, having those power struggles, the need to control, the need to,
How did you learn that? That's an interesting fact. You just learned it.
Gosh, there's a lot of stuff floating around in this little brain.
In that
of
little
mine.
brain of yours. Big brain.
No, I have this fascination with getting to the bottom of everything. I have got to know why I'm breathing, why I'm here.
Okay.
I know there's more going on than getting up and brushing my teeth every day. Beyond the regular things that we do in life, what's beyond that?
Right.
So that's probably why I do astrology for a living, is I want to get to the bottom of it. I want the answers, so I can make better decisions.
Right.
So,
Did you have a call starting to come through?
yeah, we're not going to take a call yet.
Okay.
What I wanted to do, though, is talk a little bit about karma and reincarnation on a new note. And
Okay.
I wanted to start out by talking about, have you guys read The Red Lion, this book by Maria Seps?
Well, I've heard about it. I haven't read it.
I've heard about it.
It's like this obscure book that, you're not going to find on the front shelf of every, store. In fact, I had to dig for it for a while. The first book that I found was $75. That's how obscure it is. But
Really?
as I dig more and more, you can find used books on Amazon. But this book is amazing. It's about a soul and his many lifetimes. So he goes through like 3 or 4 or 5 lifetimes in this book. And what's fascinating about it is watching him evolve. So from what he was doing in the 1500s to what he was doing in the, 20th century,
Right.
was, amazing. Learning from the lessons of pain and walking through the darkest parts of where the human condition can walk through, and the bad decisions that we make that get us in so much trouble. This man, what a story. And his whole passion was to become the great alchemist and discover eternal youth, how he could never die. He didn't ever want to die. And so that was his drive. But he drove through the pits of despair of the human condition. It's probably the most fascinating book I've ever read on reincarnation.
This reminds me of the movie Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and it is a fine line in every one of these embodiments that he went through. It's a very fine line as to, how much progress he made, from one life to another.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Caldwell is another author who read what's called the Akashic Records in life.
Right.
And she was able to write novels about it. I guess that's the only way people would buy them, is if they're in novel form, especially because we have a misunderstanding about what karma and reincarnation is. So
Well, she wrote about St. Luke as a healer, and she knew things that the average person just could not have known.
Right.
I mean, there were doctors that were absolutely amazed at how accurate her book was.
well, there's this place that you can go. It's a hall of library, book of life,
Hall of Records.
hall of records,
yeah.
book of life.
That's an
At the
etheric.
etheric level.
Okay.
And the etheric level is your higher level where heaven and earth meet. And it's sort of like a place that you have to really earn the right to go to. And I think the only way you can get there is through becoming incredibly innocent, pure, and amazingly saint-like.
Well, can't you go to the etheric retreats and study while your body sleeps at night?
Well, yeah, that's what we all do that. I
Right.
mean, for the most part, unless you're just,
You're saying beyond that, you have to earn the right to get into the Library of Congress, so to speak, at the heaven world.
Yeah, I don't think you can just walk in and think you got to have your passport,
Yeah, that's right. You're liable to run into somebody who says, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
Yeah. As a matter of fact, and if you don't react to that grumpy person,
Yeah.
you'll get in.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a cartoon I saw not too long ago. Is a little boy about 5 years old on a park bench, sitting next to an old man. He was about 80 years old. And the little boy's talking to the old man, and he says, "Yeah, when I was your age, I didn't believe in reincarnation either."
I like that.
Oh, that's great. Where'd you see that?
I can't recall. I
Yeah,
saw
that's
it in some magazine or something, some esoteric magazine. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good point. The
Here-
little boy, a lot of times the little children, they can tune into that. past
Yeah,
lives.
and especially the little children, they still see the angels up till about 2 or 3 years old, or
And that's because they still have innocence and purity.
yeah,
And that's where your inner senses abide.
yeah,
And, talking about reincarnation, I know you're not going to believe this, but, when you see people that are familiar, you know them, but you haven't met them in this life, but somehow you know them.
yeah.
Why is that? I mean, there's
It's
a
got to be,
connection.
yeah. It's an old tie, and the angels have brought you together. Boy, they
Yeah.
work overtime to bring people together too.
They do,
must.
but here's a funny story about that. When my father died about 2001,
Yeah,
and my niece just had a baby a couple months ago. And when I first glanced at this baby, I did a triple take. I mean, a triple take. I knew instantly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it was my father reincarnated.
oh, interesting.
And what's really interesting is my dad was an engineer, and she's going to college to study to be an engineer. And the father that she's, the father is a fast car race driver,
Uh-huh.
And my dad built a couple of stock car. He was always into the Indianapolis 500. I mean, he liked.
He loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, he was in the steel industry too, the machine fabrication.
So a lot of these things
As an
really,
engineer.
really tie together.
Yeah, so they would be the perfect mom and dad. Now here's the catch-22.
Okay.
My nephew just had a baby a couple of years ago, and that my nephew had my uncle. And there was a picture of, my dad as a
Yeah.
baby, and this nephew of mine. What would that be called? Your nephew has a child. What is that? Your great nephew?
I was never good at that.
Well, whatever.
I wasn't either.
Those two, they
I
took a
think it
picture.
means
Somebody-
second cousin once removed.
Yeah,
Something like that.
It's all kinds of people being removed from other people.
But this is so amazing. The two were together in one little picture, the 2-year-old and the 6-month-old, and the 2-year-old was holding on to the legs of the boy that I think is my father,
Uh-huh.
and they were brothers in their last life.
I
That
just-
was amazing.
I just heard a story of a little boy. I think he was only 3 or 4 years old or something like that, and he was white. And he said, I had dark skin in my last life, and
yeah.
and he said, and I died in a fire, and it was in Chicago. So this little boy was probably 4 years old, enough to be able to tell these things, something like that. Well, they did some research, and they found out that there was a black lady that died in a particular hotel fire in Chicago. I think he even said it was a hotel. And you hold the pictures, the two pictures together, and
They look alike.
They look alike.
I know, and that's the same of these children. I pulled out a picture of my uncle. Oh my God, it was just, there's just no doubt about it. If
Right.
anybody looks at it, they know they're the same soul. Now, here's the funny thing. I didn't tell anybody this story because I thought everybody would think I was losing it, thinking so-and-so is my dad and another person is my uncle, and they've been gone for some years now. Well, a lady about 90 years old came in and got her chart done with me a few months ago, about a month ago. And she started talking about the fact that she knew where she was a widow, of course. She knew where her husband was. She knew where she lost one of her daughters. She knew where her daughter was. She said it's just amazing to watch all of your family reincarnate in the particular family that you're in now. So she's 90 years old and she had this experience. And I said, oh my God, thank you for saying that, because I didn't want anybody to think I was losing it, but I know my dad's back. He's back. Oh my God.
So I've got a question now. Do you think when people have to reincarnate to the next life, do they always come back into the family they were in before?
No, I think that might be if you have karma to balance, and he certainly did.
So if there's still something going on
karma
there.
is the big to do here. That's your ticket to Earth, and you do have a round trip ticket. And you can't get into Earth unless you got some karma to balance. Karma is just debts that you have with people, and the way that you know that you got karma with someone is your reactions. If you react to them, you're totally in love. That love at first sight.
Yeah.
You better be careful. You've been there before.
Oh, yeah, I
And,
know. And the veil is really
yeah.
drawn right
Oh,
then,
yeah.
isn't it? I mean,
But
it's
that's
love
your
at
soul
first sight.
also going, yay, there you are. You're that person. I
You,
I had a hard time with last
and
time.
you can't sit close enough to each other
Oh,
at the
yeah.
restaurant booth,
You're
you
so
know,
excited.
on the same side of the table,
It's true.
you know.
It's true.
And then they say when the honeymoon's over, well, now that is
When you
your
get to work,
that's when
yeah.
your karma comes down. Is
Right.
when you're married.
So you don't leave your marriage at that point. You don't leave your marriage. Well, I mean,
No.
I'm not encouraging anybody to leave their marriage, but there's a point where it gets stagnant and you're not helping each other grow. But when the honeymoon is over and you have to start getting to work serving each other,
Right.
that's where you balance the karma. So you don't want to walk away from that opportunity. It is opportunity.
And that's kind of when your clock
Get the
starts,
unconditional
isn't
love
it?
going. You
See,
know?
now you could chart that marriage.
yeah.
That becomes your 12 o'clock
Oh, you
point.
can see it. It's Saturn.
Yeah.
You know, Saturn is the great. They call it the great initiator. It brings the work, the responsibility, the taking care of business, and that's why you're here on Earth, to take care of business. And you want to know, you know, the fact that you don't like that person, and you have no reason to not like that person. You've never met them before. Why would you have an instant dislike for someone that
Right.
you didn't know? Because
So-
there's a record. You're tuning into the record of the exchange before.
So you have to learn to love,
Yeah,
and
unconditionally.
work that stuff out.
Look at their shoes. Find something about them you like. You know,
Love your shoes.
I love those shoes.
Yeah.
I like to punch you in the nose, but I love
But I
those
love your
shoes.
shoes.
You know,
Oh my gosh, it's a tough road to hoe, isn't it? Sometimes
it really is.
So how do you say if you have intense karma with a member of your family or anyone, then that can make you reincarnate again with them.
Right. So you don't
So
want to be
how
yelling
do,
at
how
them.
do you get beyond that so you don't have to reincarnate where you can go to a better situation?
Well, it's
Free
all a
will
matter of working out your
choice.
karma, and
Making better choices, more loving choices, serving people, being your brother's keeper. I mean, there's a big reason to.
What kind of things can you think of, John, that would help somebody get beyond the, let's say, the 50% line, so that they are starting to get on the other side? They're getting on the good side of things.
Of their karma.
Yeah, their karma. What kinds of things could
Well,
people do?
Well, I think my understanding, to get good karma is you have to do good works,
Yeah.
and so whatever that is in any situation.
Well, serving someone, I think, would be a good work. Let me make you dinner. Let me make you breakfast. Let me make you lunch. Let me, wash your clothes. It's called, marriage.
How about people that have like 8 children, and they're balancing a whole
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of karma with a lot of souls that
Yeah,
need to
if you
come into
take
their
life,
situation.
you have to give life. So
right.
you can look at your first child as a karmic baby, so to speak, probably
The most karma probably
the
comes
most
with
karma that you've got. And
first-
then as you have more and more children, I think the karma gets less, and then you start sponsoring life,
Okay. Yeah.
So what about couples that are like fighting all the time, getting angry and
They're just making more karma. They're
throwing
tying,
things?
you're
yeah.
tying yourself to that
That's-
person.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's true. And I've seen situations like that.
Because
I
it's
just,
energy,
and I just think to myself, oh, that is so sad. That's just an ancient thing.
But you
that
can
these
look at
two
the
people
astrology and absolutely have an objective view of your relationship, and then you don't have to go down that road of beating each other up. You can see that the Saturn squares Mars, and he's always going to be late no matter what you do.
have.
you
I
know?
see. Yeah, it has to do. There's a certain mold that is cast, so to
Yeah.
speak. And if you can learn to live with it,
So you can see the blueprint, and
Yeah.
then you can,
I'll pick up his socks
Yeah.
and not worry about it so much.
because you see in the chart that the tendency might be that you wouldn't pick up his socks.
Right.
So you want to resist that which is withholding love in any way, shape, or form. And you balance karma, and then you don't have to be in that situation anymore. And I don't know if you've ever read, we were talking about Taylor Caldwell, but she had a twin flame by the name of Jess Stern, who wrote a book on twin flames.
Oh yeah, he did.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
And he worked with her a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. well, like Jeanette MacDonald, Nelson Eddy, they were,
They were twin
flames.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see it when two people it's almost like they're one. You look at
Right.
them and it's like, whoa.
well, when they sing, some of their duets, it's obvious they're
Yeah.
not a strong connection there.
Great movie, Maytime, 1930, 1940 movie.
It's so sweet.
It's beautiful.
Now, Taylor Caldwell was married, had her own relationships going, and Jess Stern was married. So you don't need to necessarily get married. You can be twin flames and you can be working together
Right.
on a project or
Right.
something. Right.
Well, your twin flame could be a baby and you're an adult,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, because
yeah,
you get
that's
off on making different decisions in your lifetimes, and you end up, going down different paths, and you have to earn your way back to that original.
And a soulmate is somebody who has a similar amount of karma to balance, and so you work together as soulmates. You're
Right.
not twin flames, but those relationships can be really,
And
really sweet.
Yeah, they are, and you're equally yoked, kind of.
Yeah.
You work, yeah. And
Yeah,
then
soulmates have a mission too. They might work on together.
Right.
You know, they have
okay.
a certain jobs they do together. It's more of a career, not career, but project oriented. Whereas a karmic relationship, they have more karma too.
Right.
They might work together, they might not.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Soulmates, twin flames, karmic relationships. And always you want to get your astrology done. You want to see how compatible you are with someone. You want to see what, would be hard, what would be easy. And I tell you, I have a lot of clients who call in and they're wanting to get on that dating computer line, Match.com or whatever, Harmony.com.
Yeah, eHarmony, Match,
Yeah.
and there's some on the Christian sites and things like
Yeah.
that. And in a way, I think it's kind of a good thing. What's your take on
Absolutely,
it?
but the thing is they'll call in with the date of birth and usually you can't get the time of birth, but if you can get the date and the year of birth, you can actually look and see if there is a danger in associating with someone, if they're going to be stalkers or if they're going to be, violent or maybe,
Right.
have any kind of problems. It's really good to get that objective understanding because we do have free will choice. We walk through life and we hook up with people that maybe we weren't supposed to hook up with. That's it,
So the three things we need to chart an accurate chart then is where you're born, the time you're born,
and the date.
and the date.
But if you just want an objective, a quick read on someone, you can just have their birthday and their year.
Okay.
And you can, because certain planets stay in the same positioning all day long.
Right.
Other planets don't, if you want to get up close and personal information. But you have to have the time. But if you just want general information, it's a really good idea to get that birthday, see if you're hooking up with a stalker or whatever. So seriously, there's a lot of crazy people out there right now
Yeah.
who are not making good free will choices. And again, you don't want to get yourself entangled because you have an off moment where you're, not thinking about anything but the fact that you don't want to be alone anymore.
Right. And the tendency is to not want to be alone because you're always looking for your other half.
Right, always. And that other
Always.
half, you might have some karma that separates you from that perfect other half. And you could be in the most amazing marriage and still every once in a while have the thought, something's missing. What's missing?
Yeah.
And I think that's the soul going, ugh, remember that twin flame? Why did I have to go eat the apple?
Yeah.
Why did I wander out of the garden? I wanted to taste this and that and the other. Why would I do that? Why would I leave my perfect relationship?
I know.
You know?
So, okay, so I'm a listener out there on the radio, and I want to get in touch with you. How do we do that?
Well, you can go to Jean.
Jean. I know you're not a man. Gene. It's
That isn't
Jean.
it. Okay, Jean at astrologyjeanhart.com.
Jean.
You can email
at,
me,
Jean at astrology.
jeanhart.com.
Jean Hart, HART.com.
As well, you can call me or text me. Text is probably the fastest way to get me, 406-599-3934. That's
Once again,
406-599-3934. 406-599-3934.
well, aren't we having fun, John? Got a
The
great
moon's
out
in
of John.
Virgo. You know, it gets kind of serious when it's in an earth sign, and Virgo is overanalyzes over, does it.
Well, I want people to get in touch with you and say, hey, I heard the show and I got this person that I'm in touch with or starting to get interested in, and I want to find out if this is going to go someplace.
Hey, I got to tell you guys, Terry can do the alphabet in 1 second flat.
Well, before we do that, Dale, don't you have a website?
A website.
I do, but it's astrologyjeanhart.com. Now, will you please do the alphabet?
Well, okay. Well, my mother taught me this. She I don't know where she learned it, but And I used to do this when I was in the nightclub scene, doing entertaining, and just, we'd be between we'd be between songs, and I would just throw it in there. And it was particularly fun if she was in the audience, in Des Moines, Iowa. Abasi Devaji Elemanapigu Resurgatazi.
Can anybody out there do that?
No,
Do it again. Do it again.
It sounds like you're stumbling, and I'm sure you are, and you're probably not saying all the letters, but it sure sounds like the alphabet, doesn't it?
Do it again.
Abasi Devaji Elemanapigu Resurgatazi.
I think I heard them all. I heard them all in there.
So, somebody out there is going to slow that down and just get back with it. We're going to be getting cards and letters.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
In anything that we're talking about on this show, if you have a question, please be sure and email me with that question. And furthermore, if you have an expertise, please let me know, and we will be glad to have you on the show. So,
Boy, we're coming up on a closing time here. Did we cover everything we wanted to cover before?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Atlantis, what we were talking about last time around.
Yeah, let's touch on it a little bit.
Just touch on it.
Yeah. And we'll come
You,
on to
you
the next show.
mentioned that Noah walked around 100 years on Atlantis on that last continent.
That's so amazing. I mean, the first time I heard that when I was a little kid, that Noah preached for 100 years, I thought, how could anyone preach for 100 years? Well, they used to live to be 800 or 900 years old. I mean,
they ate better back then.
Yeah, and Methuselah is not a myth, I mean, the guy just went and went and went. And
They didn't have GMO food, They didn't have genetically modified food.
That's right.
Monsanto seeds and all that stuff.
They were working out their karma, and they were earning the right to go back to the heart of God. So they just continually went and went and went until they had it all worked out, and then they didn't have to come back anymore. But since the fall of man, and when things went down and the continent sunk and one thing and another, all this 700 years was reduced to 10%, like
right.
70,
right.
3 and 10.
Right.
Okay.
It's just like the Valexes go 70 miles a second. Those were the
if you wanted,
that they traveled
that's
in.
amazing.
And now we go 70 miles a minute. No, an hour.
An hour, yeah.
To get, yeah. It's
Talk
crazy.
about slow down.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going like this. Talk about walking through molasses. So is that enough you wanted to cover?
Well, no, you're thinking about, one thing that's kind of funny about it all is that the unicorn in particular is what I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
You see all the kids with their little toy unicorns, and everybody loves their little idea of a unicorn. It's always depicted in different pictures that have to do with spirituality or, ancient mythology or anything.
Right.
And so what I stumbled upon in studying about Atlantis is that the unicorn was one of those animals that refused to get on the ark, Noah's Ark.
That's so amazing.
They're stubborn.
They were really rebellious.
Stubborn animals?
Yeah, and so everybody remembers them in their subconscious because, mythology is really subconscious memories of things that have gone on before. I know that sounds crazy, but Star Wars did happen.
Star Wars is a real thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this fascination with unicorns, everybody knew them and loved them, but they were a free spirit and they rebelled.
Yeah.
They refused to conform to what they needed to conform to, and so they lost the opportunity of
That's so
being
amazing.
here and now.
Remember that song about the unicorn? I think back in the 70s?
Yeah.
Who did that? Come on. Let's sing it.
I don't remember it, but I remember it. The fact that it was a popular song.
So, I looked at, not too long ago, I was in a bookstore and I came across a book on unicorns, a big book, and they had all this mythology and so-called facts about unicorns and all these drawings. And
Well, I haven't seen a horse yet with a horn in the middle of his
where
head.
does that come from? Like Gene said, it's from our past.
Comes from our memory body.
That's
Yeah.
right,
And we carry that with us in our spiritual body when we go from one life to the next, which is another interesting point. We can talk more about that in future shows, but gestation is not a 12-month period. It's a 9-month period because you're rebuilding only 3 of your 4 lower bodies. How do you like that?
Yeah, you know what? The fourth body is you in heaven. It's the etheric body, the
etheric
inspired body. So
And
you've
you
already
carry
built that before you've actually come into the
You
body.
carry it from life to
Yeah.
life. So
And
you rebuild
think
your
about this is so cool. I had the honor of having one of my children at home. And when she was born, there was just like this great energy, this great light in the room. It was just mind-boggling how beautiful it felt, and nobody could deny this feeling. Okay, I was with my father when he passed, and 2001, the same feeling filled the room right when he made his
When he
transition.
made his transition.
So it's like the same door opened that
Wow.
my daughter came through, my dad went out.
Yeah.
It's the etheric plane. It's that light. It's that special, amazing. You just have to be so quiet to feel it. But yeah.
Jean, what are we going to do for our next show?
Well, on this one, I want to actually do one more thing, and that's America's chart.
Okay.
Um,
So
Yeah.
America's chart. Where are we starting?
We're starting at July 4th, 1776 at 5:13 p.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to mention that America has what's called a progressed moon at 18 degrees Scorpio, and it's activating the 12th house. This has to do with money, economy, but it also has to do with oil. I think it's very interesting that this moon is in this area right now, and we just got the Keystone. What is that called? The pipeline?
The president vetoed that desire of Congress to move ahead with the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah, and when will that come up again? I mean, I don't know how long it is between
Well,
their decisions.
only when they can have enough votes to override a veto. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
That,
I'm not sure
more
how
than
that
more
whole
than
process works,
more than
but
2/3.
we have the moon in this location, which tells me that there's going to be a change again, that it'll probably come up again.
Okay.
And the economy is going to be up and down, up and down. When it goes up, like gas going from $4 to $1.95. That was awesome.
I know.
But we'll see that many times. I don't think the economy is going to completely collapse. What I think it's going to do is just go up and then come down and go up and down. So the smart thing to do is to put a little money away, put some cash under your pillow, gold under your hat, and maybe invest in tangible things like real estate or something you put your hands on and you can pay as you go. You don't want to incur debt during this cycle, especially when the progressed moon is in Scorpio in America's chart.
How long a cycle?
Well, we're looking at about another year at least in
Okay.
Scorpio. Then it goes into Sagittarius, which is going to amplify a little bit of warfare with foreigners. So, these are things just to think about when you can take a country's chart and do it and see how you fit in and how it would affect you. So, for instance, if we did go to war, how does your chart work with America or with any other country that we're at war with? And then you can find out whether you're going to be participating in it or not.
Okay.
Now, that sounds pretty amazing.
Well, it does.
So to know is objective ability to control what you're about to face in life. Do you know what I'm saying?
All these congressmen and senators ought to be studying the astrology of the nations.
It should be taught in the schools. And
my
Theodore
gosh.
Roosevelt had his chart calculated since he was 11 years old. His parents were really into it, and he had his chart mounted on the chessboard, on a chessboard in the White House.
Oh my gosh.
So from 11 years old all the way to the White House, he always knew his cycles so he could make good decisions, and he ended up there.
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan, one of the richest men in the world, supposedly had a live-in astrologer. So he always knew his cycles.
Wow.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we teach it in the school system so the kids can know, when they've got game and when they don't?
Mm-hmm.
When they're vulnerable to get sick. For instance, I told everyone in the realm of I have Astrology Elite Club where I send out messages to everyone what they're going to face in astrology. And I said, it's full moon in Virgo, wash your hands a lot, be careful because you're vulnerable to, more germs and hygiene issues during the next few days. And I think everybody I've talked to has either said they've had the flu or they got a cold right now. It's kind of amazing how planets can move into a position and influence a particular subject that becomes a theme in the greater population. Everybody's dealing with it.
Boy, talk about themes. I mean, we got all kinds of places we could go.
We do. And we will go there.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep we're going to get on the political thing. In our last show, we talked about having the FBI and the CIA. That was just humor.
That was humor, folks.
You know.
Well,
Unless one happens to call in and and decide that he wants to be on the show, we'll
Yeah.
have him on. But
But for the most part, yeah, we don't want to necessarily go there only because there's just not enough time. There's so many other interesting things to talk about.
we'll be talking about everything. Like
Yeah.
I said, we'll have saints, sages, we'll have cooks, we'll have tailors, we'll have doctors, we'll have,
But we're not going to have any lawyers. No, I'm just kidding.
we could, I mean,
There's all kinds of lawyer
could-
jokes. John, your job is to find as many lawyer jokes as you can.
I can do that. I can
Okay.
do that. Yeah. I'm
Well,
trying
you're
to,
kind of a jokester.
I'm trying to think of one offhand here, a lawyer joke, and
we don't
can't.
want to put any
the
lawyers
blonde
off.
jokes are better.
No.
What was that blonde joke about the?
Oh, the blonde joke was
moons and Virgos. I can't think of any lawyer jokes.
okay.
It's only, Virgo is health, hygiene, the details, cleaning out your
Yeah.
closet, putting everything in order that's in chaos. That's what you do with the moon in Virgo, and you avoid stress like the plague. So it actually is a good time to fast when the moon is in Virgo, believe it or not. That'll lower your stress levels if you clean out
What
your
are
body.
what are some things to do to avoid stress? Go to a movie, have fun.
Fast, eat right, think right, avoid people who put pressure on you, find people that are humorous,
Yeah.
Get in your hot tub.
get in your hot tub
If you
you
have
want
one.
Yeah. Rent
or
rent
get in your
really
neighbor's hot tub.
Rent really sweet movies. Rent some
Yeah.
old Nelson Eddy, Jeanette McDonald movies.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty to do out there. John, we want to thank you for being on the show today. This has been very, very informative.
Oh, you're welcome, Jerry and Jean.
Yeah. Will you come and join us again?
You betcha.
All righty. So, Jean, what are we going to talk about next week?
I can't wait to next week because we're getting better and better as we do the show. So next week we're going to talk about Kuan Yin, chakras, and chocolate.
Now, that sounds fun.
It'll be a
Okay.
great show. You've got to come back and listen, you guys.
It's going to be a good one. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.